blocking. And time blocking, is the biggest struggle of a lot of people. Time blocking is one of those things that most people don't find that it's important until it becomes a problem. Until it becomes a problem, and until you realize that you don't have time for anything, until you're stressed out about everything that you have going on, you don't think that it's an issue. But here's what the smart people do. The smart people hop on it before they actually need it. Okay? Listen, time is your most valuable asset, especially when it comes to business. It's your most valuable asset, and it should be treated as such. It should be respected the most out of everything that you do in your business. Okay. Time works on two separate spectrums. You either have time for things or you don't have time for things. What happens when you have too much time? Okay. You're just all over the place. You're all over the place. You don't have any structure. You think that you're working, but you're not really. You're just being busy. You're not being productive. But on the flip side of that, when you don't have any time, you start to miss opportunities. Okay. You start to drop the ball on things. It starts to create an even bigger mess. And so I want to emphasize the importance of managing your time and how to get better at time blocking. As you all know, this is a very powerful group and there's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of you have some big goals in this group that as those goals start getting near, as you start reaching those goals, things are going to become more chaotic unless you have this process and this time blocking managed effectively the right way. Okay? I'm going to give you all some formulas on this time blocking that's going to help you out better. If you haven't gone through the actual time blocking lesson yet, definitely do that. This is going to enhance all of that. This is going to make it more clearer and it's going to help you out be better about this. Sometimes when you all send in your success journals, I see this a lot, and not just with you, Carol, but I see it with other people. Everybody talks about, oh, this was a crazy week. This was a crazy week. Crazy week. It's always crazy, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be crazy because when there's structure in place the right way, you may think that you have systems, but you don't have structure. Okay, because systems and structure are two separate things. Just because you pay for a system does not mean you have structure. All right. So realize that. And every week doesn't have to be crazy. When you start getting busy, it doesn't have to be crazy. When you start doing deals, it doesn't have to equal craziness. All right. Because that's going to tap into your subconscious and you're not going to want that. So we need to prevent that. One thing, everyone, we all time block. And if you're not, start doing it. Download that time block calendar and start putting that stuff in there. But one thing about time blocking is you have to revisit it from week to week. So most of us will set our calendars up on Sunday or Monday, whatever it is, set up your to-do list, but you have to revisit it from week to week because you may have a problem in there that you don't know about yet until you revisit it. How many of you actually look back at last week's calendar and analyze that calendar? How many of you go look back and see what you actually got done, what appointments were on there, what power hours, what meetings were on there that actually got done? How accurate have you been with following your time block? Last week I shared that story about me setting up my time block. And then before you know it, I was pushing snooze on stuff. Then I was deleting stuff, then completely taking out the whole time block because I wasn't revisiting. I didn't know what was working, what wasn't working. But I can tell you how it ended up. It ended up not being a time block calendar because I wasn't smart about it. I thought that I was doing something just by setting it up. But in actuality, I was just doing busy work because I wasn't following it. Okay. I wasn't following this system that I had set up. Okay, so what's the goal of time blocking? Let's wrap our heads around why time blocking is important. It's not just to say that, oh, I'm organized at the end of the day. That's not the goal of time blocking. The goal of time blocking is for you to truly be able to get more done. How do we do that? We eliminate is number one. We leverage, we learn to leverage, then we delegate, and then we track. Okay. Those are the four processes behind time blocking. You eliminate, you leverage, delegate, and track. And I love tracking. So the first thing, eliminate. What's on your calendar? What's in your schedule? What's on your to-do list that shouldn't be there? I talked a lot about that last week. Those things that shouldn't be there. You think that they're supposed to be there. They sound important, but in actuality, they really shouldn't be there. Once you recognize those things, you're gonna say to yourself, okay, is this something that needs to be done or or not? And if it needs to be done, does it have to be done by you? That's where delegation comes in. Okay. You're going to start delegating things out. But what about leverage, right? A lot of people will be more busy than they have to be because they don't leverage. You don't leverage your time the right way. You don't leverage your systems the right way. You can be more productive if you put things in groups of time and getting it done instead of saying, okay, every single day I'm going to post this on Facebook. And now you have this in your calendar that's blocking out 30 minutes every single day when you can just spend an hour on Sunday or 30 minutes Monday and get the whole week's done. Okay. You need to start to leverage your systems. And if you have people, you can leverage those people that you have there. Delegating. This is hard for business owners because we have that mentality. I can just do it myself. I can get it done quicker. And that may be the case, but that's not the smartest thing. That's not the smartest way to do it. And then tracking. Okay, I just gave you a tracking exercise a minute ago by just revisiting your last week's calendar. You need to track this stuff. How effective are you being with time blocking? How much more organized are you? What's a mess? What needs to be delegated? What is your business doing? All of this stuff starts with your calendar. And you need to be able to track these, track your activities, track the money that you're making. Okay? Now, something that I want you all to wrap your head around because I realize that a lot of you, your goal this year is to make $100,000 or more. On average, on average, us as real estate agents, we're gonna work about 2,000 hours a year. Okay, that equals the standard pay to $50 an hour. $50 an hour. If your goal is $100,000, say I make $100,000. Like say that, because you have to go through the whole year thinking that. You have to go through the whole year with in the back of your head, my salary is $100,000. My salary is $100,000. So your time is worth $50 an hour. Now, are your activities that you're doing, are they making you money or are they costing you money? Okay, with you making $50 an hour, is whatever activity you're doing, is it making you that $50 for that hour or is it costing you? Some of you may be throwing away money. Some of you may be throwing away money that's meant for you because you're doing stuff that you don't need to be doing. Okay, we can leverage so much. There's so many ways to leverage your activities in this business. I want you to do this exercise whenever something comes up. Okay, and I mean any and everything in your day. I want you to think about the cost versus the savings. The cost versus the savings. I'm going to give you a little simple example, right? We're working with this $50 an hour, right? So for those of you who take a lunch, which you all should, and you're leaving your desk, you're going sit in some drive-through, it may take you an hour's worth of time to go and get food and come back. How much are you really spending during that time? Versus you just hopping on Uber Eats, it might cost you $5, but you're not hopping in the car, traveling, interrupting your workflow, going to sit in a drive-through. You make $50 an hour. Why are you letting a drive-through cost that when you can spend $5 and reduce that with jobs, with different tasks that we do? I love talking about Fiverr. I love talking about, expanding, building out, getting assistance and everything. If you're making $50 an hour and it costs you $10 an hour to have an assistant do something, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Okay, because the fact that you're doing it, it's costing you money. Okay, start thinking about that in different areas of your business. That costs versus the savings. Is this costing you money or is this saving you money? Because again, if you do it, it's going to be very expensive versus you delegating it or you leveraging a system to now it's saving you the money. Something we got to be careful of in this business is things popping up. There's always something that pops up, always. And things popping up, they're a distraction. They're such a distraction. Now, they need to be done most of the times, but they're a distraction. What do they end up doing? They end up throwing you off your time. You end up starting to put focus in something that you shouldn't be. You may start freaking out about something that's not even that serious. Has anybody ever heard of that quote? There's a time and a place for everything. Don't let these things popping up throw you off. Okay? Because we have forces working against us in all kinds of ways, but you have to be laser focused. Remember, what's my cost? What's my savings? Is this about to cost me an hour, or can I wait 30 minutes to do this during that time that I put on my calendar to do it? Okay, you already have it blocked off if it's the right way. But when you don't have it blocked off, when you don't have that time block calendar, what happens? Things start popping up everywhere. You don't know when to do it, where to put it. It's just all over the place. And that's not the goal here. You are a business owner. You are a business owner. You need structure. You need discipline. You need to make sure that you are acting as the CEO. Some of you are acting like cashiers when you're supposed to be the CEO of this company. Okay. The CEO focuses on high level activities. High level activities. One thing in business, have y'all ever heard about something scaling? I got to scale my business. I got to scale this. I got to scale that. Well, that's what it is. When you have tapped into something, when you have tapped into a system, you know how something's working. Okay, you delegate that out. It's going to still work. Yeah, it may cost you a little bit of money, but guess what? You're able to focus on more higher level activities. So now that process still keeps going. It's still moving in the background. And what are you doing? You're moving on to something bigger and better. That's what scaling is. But you won't be able to scale if you keep yourself on just that front line. Okay. And I don't want you to be afraid of scaling. Don't be afraid of delegating. That's the only way that your business is going to grow. You all made the investment to become real estate agents. So when you start making some money in this business, now it's time for you to start reinvesting in it. Okay. And that's not just reinvesting in, now I'm going to get some postcards and now I'm going to order some pins with my logo on it. It's not a reinvestment. You need to reinvest in some of your processes and systems. You need to reinvest in some of your people. Okay. Because those people, those systems, that's what's going to give you leverage to scale in this business. Okay. You have to take this stuff very seriously and not let things fall through the cracks. You don't let things fall through the cracks in your transactions. So why are you letting them fall through the cracks in your business? If you know you need to do something, you as that CEO need to be disciplined enough to get it done. Get it done. Because if you don't do it, if you can't set that bar high enough, nobody's going to come into your organization and respect it enough to do the same. Okay? You have to be looked at as a leader, not only to people who you hire, but to your clients. Okay? Because that's going to spill over. I love how Donna talked about her process that she has with rentals. You know, she pre-qualifies them. She has a process. That's what allows her to talk to so many people a day. That's what allows her to generate so many leads. Okay. If you get tight about this, you can do a lot more because you know that everything has a time and a place. One thing about me, if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist because I follow my calendar religiously. So if it's not in there, it doesn't exist. If it's not in there that morning, it's not getting added in there that day. Okay. Nope. It's going to have to be the next day, or it's going to have to be later this week. It's going to have to be next week. Because one thing I gave advice in last week to come in, print out your daily schedule every day. When I print that schedule and it sits on my desk, nothing else is getting added to that. Okay. Because that is my day. That's what I have planned. That's what I have mapped out. That's what I'm going to tackle for this day. Nobody's going to come and just add things on there. You know what that's called? That's called discipline. That's discipline right there. And it spills over in every area of my business. You know what things look like when they're right. You know what things look like when they're right, when they're moving the way that they're supposed to, when things are organized the way that it's supposed to be organized. You don't need to sacrifice. Okay? You don't need to sacrifice. You are the business owner. You're putting in the hours. You're going on these appointments, these auditions. You're the one that's building this company. So hold yourself to that higher standard. Hold your business to that high standard. We're not in the business of making excuses. We're not in the business of putting things off. For what? When you put something off today, you're going to put it off tomorrow. You're going to put it off the next day. The next thing you know, 6 months down the line, you're in the same position where you started because everything has just been put off and piling on top of each other. But why? Why would you do that to yourself? Is that what you think that you're worth? It's not fair to you. It's not fair to the people who you could be potentially helping out there. It's not fair to the people who you could give a job and pay them salaries. You can change lives, but it's going to start with you. It has to start with you. Okay. So do an audit of your time blocking every single week. Do an audit of the week before. Take a look at it. You remember I gave that activity last week about writing on a sheet of paper, two separate sides, everything that you want to accomplish and then everything that you did accomplish for a whole week. And you're going to take a look at that. And you may realize that you did a lot of things that just didn't equal out to that $50. You know, why did I spend 2 hours doing this? That just costed me $100. $100 for this day. Start thinking like that with this time blocking. Another bit of advice: put the hardest and most tedious tasks at the beginning of the day. Put it all at the beginning of the day. If you know
Eat
you,
your frog.
what'd you say, Carol?
Eat the frog.
Yeah, right. Put all of these tedious projects and tasks and things like that at the beginning of the day. Knock them out. Knock them out at the beginning of the day when your mind is fresh. If you got to come into the office earlier, if you got to start earlier, knock that stuff out at the beginning of the day because we know how things get later in the day. Sometimes things get pushed back. Sometimes things fall out. Sometimes you may end up working longer on something. So get the stuff that you need to absolutely do for that day done in the beginning of the day. Make it one of the first things that you do. Again, you have to know that your time is the most valuable asset when it comes to business. That's the one thing that separates success: how you're spending your time, what you're doing with your time. People ask me all the time, how do you get so much done? Well, I just manage my time differently than you. You can do the same thing. You can do the same thing. Y'all have the same license that I have. Y'all have the same freaking license that I have. Nothing different. But how are you managing your time? Okay? And I don't want you to mistake managing time to mean doing something every second of the day. Okay? I'm not saying that you have to be completely on 100%. But I am saying that you need to see your resources, your tools, the systems that are out there, and learn how you can leverage those. Some of you with social media posts, there's systems out there that can post for you. Okay. Some of you with calling, appointment setting, there's companies out there, there's people out there that can do it for you. If you're bogged down with paperwork, hire a transaction coordinator. Okay. You may spend 15 hours on a transaction just doing paperwork. Okay. You may spend 10 hours on a transaction doing paperwork when you can pay them $200 and they'll do it for you. So now you're gaining 10 hours back. Think like that. Think like that with everything in your business. The reason why I always want y'all to do that exercise with the time blocking, with the time block calendar, and use those colors, because your calendar, you want more of that green time activity on there. And if you don't have enough green, you're not going to make that green. You're not going to make that money that you want to make. Okay. So really do that activity and take these things that I said to you today and apply them to your business and apply them to your life. Time blocking is a psychology. It's not just an activity. And you won't fully know the importance of it, and you won't treat it seriously unless you understand the psychology behind time blocking. All right, I want to open it up for any questions.